The British media today is reporting the draft conclusions of the 29th of June European Council summit, where the European Council is saying it expresses its concern that no substantial progress has yet been achieved on agreeing a backstop solution for the Irish border. Do you agree that do you think that the 29th of June summit is going to make any significant or substantial progress at all in terms of these Brexit negotiations?
Well, I think the progress is what I have indicated in the beginning, and that's that common statement that has been made by Mr. Davis and Mr. Barnier yesterday, I think, where they indicate the progress in the withdrawal agreement in 7 specific fields of the withdrawal agreement. But I don't expect more than that now, to be realistic.
Thank you. On this issue of the Irish border, which seems to be the fundamental stumbling block, not least because it connects the withdrawal agreement to the political declaration. It's the kind of umbilical cord between the two. The European Parliament has advocated an association agreement. Yep. Do you see an association agreement being a basis for resolving the Irish border issue?
Well, it doesn't solve all problems, naturally, an association agreement. An association agreement is a framework in which you can create a relationship based on one governance, one ratification cycle, with democratic institutions and covering everything what you want. But it is not a miracle. It doesn't. You cannot say, oh, we have an association agreement and now the border issue between Northern Ireland and the Irish Republic is solved. You still need to to decide on content, on what you put in the trade and economic pillar of that association agreement. Will it be, what will it be? Single market, customs union, EEA, less than EEA, only a bespoke trade deal? That you need still to fill in such an association agreement. So an association agreement is not taking away the hard political choices that have to be made between the two negotiating parties, but it creates a framework that is foreseen in the treaties, that is understandable, creating governance structures to manage this future relationship between both. Isn't
time a major factor here? And the reality is that we have a very narrow and narrowing everyday window of opportunity. So the reality for resolving the Irish border issue is now there has to be an off-the-shelf solution, and that has to be the EEA plus a customs union. Isn't it now just time to inject some honesty into this discussion and recognise that that is the only realistic solution on the table?
It's to you to conclude on that, not to me to conclude on that. I have, if there were no red lines of the UK, then I see very easy to find the single market and as the solution, for example. But that's to you to decide on this. Even when I have understand it, I don't know if it's true. People said to me, "Don't use the word EEA." I said, "Why can I not use the word EEA? That's a toxic word in Britain." I said, "Okay, a toxic word." Are there other toxic words in
because it has the word Europe in it. It contains the word Europe. That's why.
The word Europe also is also toxic.
Stay away from that.
Okay. Stay away from it. And I have to go out then. Again, for the European Union side, there is no problem to talk about any solution that is put forward by the British side, can go until the single market and so on and so on, because we want the closest relationship as possible with so if your question is, if the British government comes forward with a proposal where they merge a little bit some policies of an approach like EEA with, for example, customs union, would there be an opposition by the European Union? There will be no opposition and no problem with the European Union. The problem is not the European Union. The problem is how you marriage the red lines of the UK with what Michel Barnier is always calling the ecosystem of the European Union, the rule-based system of the Union.
Yeah.
You cannot ask us to have a fantastic solution that gives up our system. That we will not do.
Going back to the idea of the association agreement, one of the criticisms that's levelled at the European Economic Area is this thing about going from being a rule maker to a rule taker. Isn't it the case that under an association agreement that would be even more problematic, because the EEA countries do actually participate in the shaping of European regulations and directives through expert committees, through the EEA Joint Committee. You also have the EFTA Court these are well-established institutions, whereas with an association agreement you have far less of a stake and a far weaker leverage in terms of the actual making and shaping of the acquis.
Well, my answer to this is that the association agreement has an enormous flexibility. You can put a lot of fields in it, or only limit yourself to one or another field. Secondly, you will put in place a governance system where we will have a governance structure between the UK and the EU on senior level, on ministerial level, and on leadership level. So it will be a bespoke system. And where we will have 2 times a year, 1 time a year, I don't know, a summit between EU and UK. Well, we have joint association councils between ministers, British ministers and EU ministers responsible for the European Union, governing that agreement, and at the same line on the level of senior officials. So it is it's not possible to compare it immediately with saying it's that type of influence that the UK side will have.
I mean, it sounds
it's bespoke.
What you're setting out sounds very attractive in terms of its bespoke nature. But do you think that it's realistic that we would have the leverage, given how little time there is and how much goodwill has been burned already, that we'd have the leverage to create something new, if you like, pull a rabbit out of the hat, which I think is what you're suggesting, really, that you can have a very wide-ranging association agreement in draft format in the political declaration, and that members of Parliament here would then be expected to vote for that, in the hope that we would then be able to strike a deal which both gives us the kind of access to the single market that we want, but also deals with this issue of sovereignty and rule maker, rule taker. What you're talking about here sounds attractive but vague.
But it's not a rabbit out of the hat now. The rabbit is already a long time out of the hat, I should say, because we have already months and months and months ago said that this was the way forward in association agreement, first. Secondly, I think that we are very precise in our resolution how it would work. And yesterday I have, in this intervention in Vienna before the Fundamental Rights Agency, given more details about the governance structure of such an agreement. If we go on that line, and three, the main point, the main attractive point is that you have then a system where you have one governance, one ratification cycle. To manage all this, instead of what, in my opinion, would be a disaster. That is that we make that we follow the Swiss example in our future relationship, and we are making 10, 20, I don't know, 100 deals. Some are mixed, others not mixed, and that we entering in a period of 2 days of uncertainty about the ratification of all this. We need to be. We are lawmakers. You are lawmakers. We are lawmakers. So we need to be very prudent on that. We need to have a system that works from day one, and and there I think the association agreement solve it, but it doesn't solve all the problems. We still need to have the discussion: how far will be the cooperation on trade and economic matters, and so and there you have the different types and proposals and possibilities that you have mentioned in your intervention. It doesn't solve all the problems, but it creates an understandable and comprehensive framework in which it will be more easy, in my opinion, for both parties to come to a conclusion. And then turning around the principles and turning little rounds around the red lines.
Thank you very much. Just one final question then. Have you received any specific feedback on that proposal from the UK government?
I thought that a number of people see the advantage of it, yeah, okay, and the logic behind. Okay. Thank you. So I'm waiting for, as you, for the white paper of the government to see if it has made any progress.
Thank you very much.